maybe here.
Okay.
Susie, my grandkids are going to a good pasture.
Susie, you muted.
I'm unmuted. They just start?
Yeah.
What grades?
Y'all don't know, Susan. Don't ask him that question.
My thing's messing up.
Okay.
Mayor, as we suspected, we're not able to connect live with Facebook. There was a notice sent earlier that there might be issues with Zoom connecting to Facebook, and they're happening. So we'll only be available on Comcast and through Zoom. We
We'll
did
hear
post
about
on
that.
Facebook.
Jeff, are we good to go?
Yes, ma'am. As I said, we're not able to connect with Facebook.
Okay. Well, we will get started if everyone's ready. Everyone ready?
Ready? 6:01.
All right. Well, let's call to order this September 1st, 2020 meeting of the Gallatin City Council. This is a council meeting. I do have an executive order and a vote that has to take place by this body before we proceed. But I do want to tell everyone who may be tuned in on Zoom that you might want to help us spread the word. We are not able to stream to our website or to Facebook this evening. You however, can share the link to this meeting and people may join that way, or they may watch it if they're just interested in viewing it on cable channel 19. With that, I'm going to read this and move forward with the vote so we can proceed with the evening's agenda. This says, pursuant to Governor Lee's executive orders number 16, number 34, and number 51, and the need to limit the community spread of COVID-19, the September 1st, 2020 Gallatin City Council meeting will be held by electronic means. The meeting will be live streamed to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the council and the citizens of Gallatin. You may join the Zoom meeting at the link that is shown on the screen. You may dial in at 470-381-2552 or 1-470-250-9358. And if you call either of those numbers, you will enter the webinar ID 896-3222-5463. So with that disclosure, I can entertain.
Move we accept that.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Love, a second by Councilman Overton. Any discussion? Okay, I will ask Ms. Kittrell to call the roll for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Camp,
Aye.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilman Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor vote is 7-0.
Thank you. With that, we will move forward with the rest of the meeting, and we will begin, like we do most of our meetings, with the invocation. I'm going to ask Councilman Alexander to lead us in the prayer this evening, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor. Let your heart pray. Eternal gracious God, once again, we come with thanksgiving in our hearts. We thank you, dear Lord, for the city of Gallatin, and we thank you, dear Lord, for all the frontline workers who are working hard to keep us all safe. Now, Lord, we just pray that everything we say and do in this meeting tonight will be pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' name, I do pray, and every heart said, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Alexander. Mrs. Kittrell, if you will now call the roll for attendance, please.
Vice Mayor Camp,
Present.
Councilman Alexander,
Present.
Councilman Fan,
Here.
Councilman Fennell,
Here.
Councilman Hayes,
Present.
Councilwoman Love,
Here.
Councilman Overton.
Present.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We have no minutes provided this evening, so there are none for consideration. So we will move on to public recognition on agenda-related items. This is the time of the meeting where the public may comment on any item that is on the agenda. If you are on the meeting and wish to comment, Mr. Henschel will go through the list. He will recognize you either by your name if you're on the Zoom meeting or by phone number if you've called in, at which point you will be unmuted, but you have to unmute yourself. So be sure and do that. Also want to let you know that there is a time at the end of the meeting where we have public comment on non-agenda related items. So if you have an item that you'd like to speak to that's not on tonight's agenda, that would be your time to do that. With that, public recognition on agenda-related items is now open, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Henschel.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would ask that everyone use the raise your hand function. If you're using a cell phone, you will hit *9 to raise your hand, and then we'll call out the last 3 digits of your phone number. We'll start with Christy Allen. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Christy Allen. I live at 104 Vineyards Court, and just want to say thank you to the council for giving us the opportunity to join the Zoom. I just appreciate that opportunity to get to voice our concerns. I want to talk with you again. I was on the call last week about Bledsoe Springs, and just again, I want to share my concerns about safety regarding this development. It's a very busy intersection. There is heavy industrial and emergency traffic there every day. We're going to now be dealing with construction for Facebook. So that traffic coming through there as well. There are frequent accidents at that intersection at 25 and Airport Road. I talked with the Gallatin Police Department today, and they pulled numbers for accidents for the last year, for the last 12 months. And Gallatin Police Department has worked 10 accidents there, and they did say that anything that would have been worked by the Sheriff's Department would be in addition to that, as well as the Tennessee Highway Patrol. So we know there have been at least 10 accidents there in the last year. And as I said, I live in the Vineyard subdivision off of Berry Lane. And when traffic backs up on 25, people use Berry Lane as a cut through, and traffic backs up just horribly. I mean, all the way back to the old EMA building. And it just shuts this entire area off, which is a huge safety concern. I mean, I know that if you know, an ambulance was, or a fire truck, you know, was to make its way back here, it couldn't get back. And I've sat in that traffic myself, and I've mentioned before, just on my way to a city council meeting a year ago, it took me an hour. It's a 10-minute drive at most, and it took an hour to get there that night. So again, I just want to reiterate the safety concerns that I have there. Putting the entrances to that development directly across from Robertson Road and Hillside Lane, there on 25. I mean, it's just asking for an accident to happen. Turning left from any of the roads on this side of Highway 25 at any time of day, it doesn't matter if it's morning or in the afternoon. It's very difficult now, and that's just going to make it even worse. So I just want to say, please say no to this development. This is not the right location for a high density development of this type. And again, we know growth is coming, it's all around us, but this is not the right location for such a high density development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Brenda Lees, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm sorry, I've got dogs crazy. I live at 1078 Robertson Road. We have lived here about 28 years. We have 11 acres at our home. We have horses, 22 acres across the road, cows. I want to voice my opposition to this development called Bledsoe Springs. It just doesn't fit with the neighborhood. I know there's a neighborhood on the other side of Hartsville Pike, but as it is now, I cannot turn left off of Robertson Road onto Hartsville Pike. I have to go right and go to Cairo to get out of my neighborhood. In addition to Miss Allen, I think she said there were 10 accidents reported from the police department. Since we're the county, I know there have been other accidents further east on Hartsville Pike that have been worked by the county. So in addition to the safety issues, I ask that you please don't approve another development, especially a high density development in this area with townhomes. this is more of an agricultural type area on this side of the road. And in addition, if you go 4 miles further east on Hartsville Pike, there is another development going in. I believe it's called Bledsoe Creek or Bledsoe Crossings. It's been idle for probably about 2 years now. They have not done anything. There are so many developments going on in the city and county. I really don't know, and I would love to hear why the council members that support this, what the reasons are for supporting it. I don't really see the reason. You had to annex this area just to get it into the city limits so that you can change the zoning on this to be high density. We are against it. Everybody I have talked to on my street, which not everybody is on Facebook and calls in. I understand you've got to hear from people, but most of the people on this road I know, and all of the people that I have talked to have been opposed to this. And I know we're the county, but now the other side of Hartsville Pike is going to be the city. So I hope that you will represent the community in our wishes and not the developer on this project. We are against this, and I please ask that you look at this with new eyes and vote no to this development. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's everyone who's indicated they'd like to speak. Oh, wait a minute. We have one more. Michelle Jovance, go ahead.
Hi, Jeff. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so is there a public comment on the Bledsoe Springs annexation?
Sorry, there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 public hearings this evening, and Bledsoe Springs, and that would be it.
So there is, so I should wait until then
It doesn't matter.
Okay, well, I can talk right now then if it doesn't matter. So I was just wanting to ask a question. The Bledsoe Springs annexation and rezoning and the plan of service that's attached to that is stating that it requires another fire station and more police. And I did ask this twice already in the last several weeks, but I didn't get the actual answer about how we're going to pay for the fire station. And that was my specific question, was how we're going to pay for this fire station if we do annex this in, because it is the city's responsibility to pay for these kinds of services for our citizens that are in the city. So if we are annexing this in and we are going to need a fire station in that area, can we afford that right now? I think that's something that needs to be discussed, and I'd like to see you all discuss that this evening, because do we have the money set aside to pay for that fire station? And if we don't, are we going to borrow that money or raise taxes? And borrowing money does usually mean raising taxes to pay for those bonds. This is a significant expense. It's about a $3 million one-time expense, and then an ongoing every year cost of probably $800,000 to $1 million for staffing and ongoing costs for a new fire hall. So please consider that. I mean, I don't think that we are, right now, we don't need to annex in more land. We don't need to annex in more so that we can put in more development, because we have plenty that's already inside the city, and we need to take care of the citizens that are already inside the city. We don't need more to annex in more at this time. Thank you. I would like to hear your comments on my question about that tonight.
Okay, that's everyone for public comment.
Okay, thank you so much. And there is also a public hearing on Bella Vista, and I'm sorry, I should have addressed those things at the beginning of the meeting. It's been a while since we've had any public hearings. So now we'll move on to mayor's comments. I do have a proclamation to share this evening. This is for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So if you will bear with me, I will read through it, and I believe Jeff will be able to show it to you on the screen as well. This says this is a proclamation by the mayor. Whereas suicide is one of the most disruptive and tragic events a family and a community can experience, with more than 1,000 lives lost in Tennessee each year and an estimated 8 to 25 attempted suicides for each suicide death. And whereas suicide is the ninth leading cause of all deaths in Tennessee and the second leading cause of death among people from the ages of from age 10 to 24. And whereas 3 lives a day are lost to suicide in Tennessee, which means we lose 22 Tennesseans each week and 97 people per month. And whereas Tennessee veterans, active duty military personnel, and National Guardsmen face a disproportionate risk as compared to the general population of Tennessee, with more dying from suicide than from combat. And whereas public awareness of this terrifying problem is the key to preventing further suffering and loss of life, and the risk for human self-destruction can be reduced through awareness, education, and treatment, and is the highest risk for suicide is among the survivors of those who died by suicide or those who have attempted suicide. And whereas suicide prevention has been declared a state priority by the governor, and the Tennessee legislature has declared teen suicide prevention as a state priority in partnership with the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network to implement the Tennessee Strategy for Suicide Prevention. And whereas Tennessee is a national leader in the effort to prevent suicide, being one of the first states to develop a suicide prevention and evaluation plan covering the lifespan. And whereas the governor of Tennessee has appointed a Suicide Prevention Network Advisory Council to coordinate the implementation of the Tennessee Strategy for Suicide Prevention. And whereas the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network is a grassroots collaboration of Tennesseans and organizations working to eliminate the stigma of suicide, educate the community about the warning signs of suicide, and ultimately reduce the rate of suicide in our state. And whereas every member of our community should understand that throughout life's struggles, we all need an occasional reminder that we are all silently fighting our own battles. And whereas we encourage all residents to take the time to inquire as to the well-being of their family, friends, and neighbors over the next few days, and to genuinely convey their appreciation for their existence by any gesture they deem appropriate. A simple phone call, a message, a handshake, or hug can go a long way towards helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. Now, therefore, I, Paige Brown, Mayor of the City of Gallatin, do hereby proclaim September of 2020 as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in Gallatin, Tennessee. And I do urge all citizens to work to help us prevent suicide and raise awareness and tolerance around all people affected by this tragedy. So this is a very important proclamation, certainly an important month. Suicide is a loss of life that is preventable. You guys probably don't know this, but years ago, I actually wrote for the American Association of Suicidology, and I had lots of opportunity to interview people who had attempted suicide and been unsuccessful. And I learned a lot about the mindset of people who had tried suicide, and every one of them that I had the opportunity to interview was glad that they had survived. And fortunately, no one that I ever interviewed attempted it again, but I know that there are those who attempted multiple times. So anything that we can do to outreach and show someone we care and provide resources for people who are in a place where they may be considering suicide will help us stop this. So thank you all for indulging me with that proclamation. With that, we'll move on to the regular agenda. And the first item on this evening's agenda is public hearing on ordinance 02008-32, and Councilwoman Love is recognized for that.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Gallatin, Tennessee, rezoning a 13.76 plus or minus acre parcel from the A Agricultural Residential District to the R15 Medium Density Residential District with a preliminary master development plan for Bella Vista, located south of East Broadway near Martin Lane, authorizing the revision to be indicated on the official zoning atlas, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is a public hearing.
And this is a public hearing on ordinance 02008-32. Anyone wishing to speak may raise their hand. Mr. Henschel will remind you how to do that if you are on the Zoom meeting. Mr. Henschel.
Yes, if you're on the cell phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. Otherwise, if you're on the app or on your computer, you'll just hit the raise your hand button. And just a reminder again, if you're on one of the two cell phones that I'm looking at, you'll hit *9 to raise your hand.
Okay.
I don't see anyone.
Thank you, Mr. Henschel. I see no one indicating they wish to speak, so we will declare a public hearing on ordinance 02008-32 closed. Item number 2 is public hearing on resolution R2008-46. Councilwoman Love.
Thank you. This is a resolution of the City of Gallatin, Tennessee, adopting a plan of services for the annexation of a 44.79 plus or minus acre parcel and an adjacent 2.51 plus or minus acre segment of an abandoned railroad right-of-way located north of Hartsville Pike and east of Airport Road, and providing for an effective date. This is a public hearing.
Okay, public hearing is now open on resolution R2008-46. If you'd like to speak, you may do so now by hitting *9 on your cell phone or raising your hand in the Zoom meeting if you're on the meeting by computer.
Christy Allen, go ahead. You'll have to unmute yourself there.
Thank you. Just want to make sure, so the comments that I made earlier, will they be included in this portion of the meeting?
The purpose of public hearing is to have a record of comments related to a topic. Yours will be listed under public comment that's general, but your comments will still be, have certainly been heard by the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we don't have anyone else that's raised their hand.
Okay, I appreciate it. We will say public hearing on resolution R2008-46 is closed and move on to public hearing on resolution R2008-47. And Councilwoman Love again is recognized.
Thank you again. This is a resolution of the City of Gallatin, Tennessee, annexing a 44.79 plus or minus acre parcel and an adjacent 2.51 plus or minus acre segment of abandoned railroad right-of-way located north of Hartsville Pike and east of Airport Road into the City of Gallatin, authorizing the annexed property to be indicated on the official zoning atlas, assigning the annexed area to a council district, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is also a public hearing.
Okay, public hearing is now open on resolution R2008-47. Raise your hand. Yes.
There we have one. Chris, you'll be able to unmute yourself there. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I guess I didn't understand how this process worked, but again, I just wanted to make sure that my comments from earlier were recorded in this section of the meeting and just my opposition to this development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Allen. No one else, Mr. Henschel?
We don't have anyone else.
Okay, public hearing on resolution R2008-47 is now closed, and we'll move to public hearing on ordinance 02008-34. Councilwoman Love.
This is an ordinance of the City of Gallatin, Tennessee, rezoning 44.79 plus or minus acres and a 2.03 plus or minus acre portion of the adjacent abandoned railroad right-of-way from the rural residential district to high-density residential planned residential development district with a preliminary master development plan for Bledsoe Springs, located north of Hartsville Pike and east of Airport Road, authorizing the revision to be indicated on the official zoning atlas, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Again, this is a public hearing.
Okay, public hearing on ordinance 02-008-34 is now open. If you'd like to speak, you may raise your hand either via cell phone by *9 or by raising your hand on the computer.
Christy Allen, go ahead.
Thank you. I just once again want to mention my opposition to Bledsoe Springs and the annexation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Anyone else?
Brenda Lees, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I'm supposed to speak again. I'm not familiar with how this works, but I spoke earlier and would like to make sure that my opposition to this development is recorded. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have heard your opposition. Thank you.
And I don't see anyone else who's indicated they'd like to speak.
All right. With that, we'll say public hearing on ordinance 02-008-34 is closed. Move now to item number 5, which is second reading on ordinance 02-008-30.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance appropriating $1 million from Project Woolhawk for the extension of Gateway Drive. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Love, a second by Councilman Alexander. Opening the floor for any discussion. Okay, seeing none, we will have a vote on second reading on ordinance 02-008-30, and Ms. Kittrell will call the roll for us.
Vice Mayor Camp, Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilman Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor, 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Ordinance is approved unanimously. Item number 6 is second reading on ordinance 02-008-33. Councilman Overton.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance awarding a bid for authorizing funds in the amount of $12,200,000 for water sewer reserves for construction of sanitary sewer drainage basin A flow equalization basin contract 120-2020. And I so move.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Overton. Councilman Fennell, was that you seconding? Okay, second by Councilman Fennell. Any discussion on this? Okay, this is second reading on ordinance 02-008-33. If Ms. Kittrell would call the roll for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Camp, Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilman Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor, 7 ayes and 0 nays.
Ordinance 02-008-33 passes unanimously. Item number 7 is first reading on ordinance 02-008-35. Councilman Fennell.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance appropriating $92,017 federal grant to Police Department for staffing an allocation studies project. Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Councilman Fennell, a second by Councilwoman Love. Is there any discussion? Okay, Ms. Kittrell, if you would call the roll for first reading on ordinance 02-008-35.
Vice Mayor Camp, Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilman Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor, 7 ayes and 0 nays.
Thank you. So first reading on ordinance 02-008-35 does pass unanimously. Item number 8 is first reading on ordinance 02-009-36. Councilman Fan.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance appropriating $19,600. I guess it's for or from the Tennessee Historical Commission grant for historic district survey. I so move.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Fan, second by Councilman Jimmy Overton. And yes, this is a grant from the Historical Commission to the City of Gallatin. We just have to appropriate the funds. Any discussion, anyone? Seeing none, we will ask for a call for first reading on ordinance 02009-36. And Ms. Kitchell will call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Camp. Councilman Alexander.
Yes.
Councilman Fan.
Yes.
Councilman Fennell.
Yes.
Councilman Hayes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Love.
Yes.
And Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor, 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you very much. The next item is, first reading on ordinance 02009-37. Councilman Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor. This order appropriating insurance recoveries in the amount of $11,436.54 for repair to dump, damage to dump truck 9389. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Alexander, second by Councilwoman Love. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will have first reading on ordinance 02009-37. Ms. Kitchell, if you would call the roll for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Camp. Councilman Alexander.
Yes.
Councilman Fan.
Yes.
Councilman Fennell.
Yes.
Councilman Hayes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Love.
Yes.
Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor, 7 ayes, 0 nays.
First reading on 02009-37 passes unanimously. Item 10 is first reading on ordinance 02009-38, and Councilman Hayes is recognized.
Yeah, this is an ordinance appropriating $18,538.87 from Miracle Park donations to Miracle Park Expense Fund. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Fan. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to ask Ms. Kittrell to call the roll, please, for the vote.
Vice Mayor Camp. Councilman Alexander.
Yes.
Councilman Fan.
Yes.
Councilman Fennell.
Yes.
Councilman Hayes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Love.
Yes.
And Councilman Overton.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. First reading on ordinance 02009-38 does pass unanimously. Item number 11 is first reading on ordinance 02009-39. Vice Mayor Camp.
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance appropriating funds for the 2020 and 2021 carryover capital projects in the amount of $3,010,898. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Camp, second by Councilman Alexander. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will call for the vote on first reading on ordinance 02009-39, and Ms. Kittrell will call the roll to record it.
Vice Mayor Camp. Councilman Alexander.
Yes.
Councilman Fan.
Yes.
Councilman Fennell.
Yes.
Councilman Hayes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Love.
Yes.
And Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor, 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. First reading on 02009-39 does pass unanimously. And item 12 is resolution R2009-48. Councilman Overton.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution awarding health, vision, and dental insurance contract to, for the city of Gallatin. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Overton, a second by Councilman Alexander. Is there any discussion on this? I know that Mr. Wartenberger and Ms. Coley are also on this call if you have any questions for them. There's no discussion. We'll move forward to a vote.
Vice Mayor Camp. Councilman Alexander.
Yes.
Councilman Fan.
Yeah.
Councilman Fennell.
Yes.
Councilman Hayes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Love.
Yes.
Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor, 7 ayes, 0 nays.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kittrell. Resolution R2009-48 is passed unanimously. That concludes the regular agenda. We're going to move now to other business. I do have a couple of things. One, I do want to let you know that the Gallatin Fire Department has decided that due to COVID and its impact on our department and our community, and to be safe, we are not going to be having the annual 9/11 service this year. And I think we're really going to miss that, and we will hopefully resume it next year. So I just wanted to share that with you all. Also, this council needs to discuss whether or not you're supportive of allowing Facebook to work overnight. I think most of the council did visit the site. I visited the site. I know we had a representative from the codes department visit the site. And while typically Mr. Stewart makes the decision whether or not to let construction continue overnight based on the impact of really on based on having no impact on any nearby residential communities, he feels that this project is large and highly visible, and he feels like if we leave that to him, that he would have every construction project in the city wanting to work overnight. I think most of you all know at this point that this is a very specific activity that's being requested, and the impact to the neighbors should not exist. And so it's much the similar thing, but there is a difference in how Mr. Stewart would definitely would usually make his determination. So I think it's going to ultimately be up to this council. Mr. Fenton and I discussed this today. He actually did prepare a resolution that we could use if we decide that that's the way to move forward. But right now, what I'd like to do is open the floor for our council members to discuss how you guys think we should proceed and what observations you may have had from visiting the site and observing the operations.
Mayor,
Yes,
Mr.
Fennell.
You know, I went out there and listened to it, but you know, the concern is that the neighbors can get along with it. Would it be in our best interest that if we was to do a trial run of this so the neighbors would see the difference between the nighttime activity versus the daytime activity?
I think we could potentially do that. You know, it's the will of this body, but I don't see much difference between that and another option would be to say, you know, you may move ahead with operating overnight, realizing that we all have the authority to stop it at any time if it is a nuisance to anyone. I don't mind doing the trial period. I mean, it's up to this body what happens, but
Mayor,
I'm open to what all your suggestions may be.
Mayor,
Does the citizens know that there will be a difference between the noise level in daily operations versus the noise level that they're proposing at night?
I can show that.
Yeah, we can demonstrate that on this meeting, but I do believe that the residents have been notified, but I still think that they can't really know what it is until they've actually experienced exactly what that is. Okay. Which was really just what was going on during the times that we were out there. So, you know, but anyway, related to that, and to anyone who may be on the meeting that has an interest, Mr. Fenton does have a recording of some of the information. I'll let you take it from here, Mr. Fenton.
Thank you. Mr. Henschel, before we start, if you would also please unmute Mr. Alex Henry and Mr. Jeff Mason, who are with DPR, in case they need to answer any questions. I would appreciate that. Super. And then that PDF that showed the map and then some of those other measurements, if you would bring that up, please.
Stand by. Oh, heck. Here we go.
Super. Thank you. So, council members, on this, you see Woolhawk 1, 2, and 3. You were taken to sensor number 2 out there. Okay. And then if you would scroll down to the next page here.
Ooh, I'm seeing that too. I'm going to stop sharing just briefly. Please stand by. Here we go.
Not really liking these files, is it?
No, it's not. Let me zoom out. Yeah,
Of course, it worked earlier today.
it did. Let me try one more. Let me try one more thing here.
What he's going to bring up, hopefully, are the measurements, the EQ, the LEQ. You folks have received that information before. What you're going to find is at that sensor that you folks were at, the sound level is very, very consistent until, there it is. It's the middle there, regular construction. And if you zoom in as best you can see that the times underneath. You can see when midnight is, say on the August 26th, which is right there in the middle, basically. And then, so 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, sound level goes up, drops down. And then when they start work, it's up just at 60 and then drops down in the middle of the day. And there at the very end, you'll see that when you folks were out there, just you folks being out there raised it almost 15 decibels. So you can tell what little amount of noise it takes to really make an influence on this particular measurement there. We also had a question that was an appropriate question regarding movement at night, and if someone had to move, would there be the backup, that noise that is so prevalent at a construction site? And Mr. Henschel, if you would bring up that video. They have indicated that they won't need any of that at night. But should something have to be done, this is what they will go to. This is approved by OSHA also. Here, go ahead, Jeff, play this.
Now, thanks to Brigade Electronics, there is a much better, safer solution. BBS Tech White Sound Alarms. White sound, also known as broadband sound, is made up of a wide range of frequencies. Tonal sound only has a limited frequency range. Unlike tonal sound, white sound is instantly locatable.
Okay. And then there's one more here. This talks about this. The
And
video
this
is about 5 minutes
directional
long.
ability leads to the other key benefit of white sound. It's only heard where it's needed, so vehicles operating in residential areas cause far less noise nuisance. Again, easily demonstrated. Here, a large highway maintenance lorry, fitted with BBS Tech, is reversing from its garage. Behind the lorry, the alarm is clearly audible and warns anyone on the tarmac to stand back. As the lorry passes by, it becomes clear that the white sound is confined to the back.
Thank you, Jeff. So again, they don't envision having to use any sound like that at all, that there shouldn't be a thing happening other than what you saw and heard out there. But should they have to use another piece of equipment, that is the technology they would use.
Thank you. That answers the question that I was given about the loader that would need to have an alarm. So
Yeah.
that is much better than those tones.
Agreed.
And also, Mr. Finn, I feel good about it at night because there's no truck movement, and that's what I was really concerned about.
Well, one of the most interesting things that I was told when we were out there, Miss Love and I went at the same time actually, was that the only difference in the decibel reading between the time that there was nothing going on, you were just hearing the nature noises, and the time that the grinding was going on was like 1 to 2 decibels. So it wasn't even discernible from that distance what the noise difference was. So I really I'm comfortable that there is not an impact on residences. And like I said, this body has the power to say, move forward. But if it's not just that, and the neighbors are hearing something different, then you always could say, okay, no, that's not what we expected. But I'm very confident that it is what we can expect, and it is an accurate representation of what the neighbors would experience.
And like Paige said, that when we were there together, really the noise of the cicadas in the trees was far louder than any sound that we heard from the operation from Project Woolhawk.
That's exactly the way I see it too.
And I concur as well. I was really concerned when I went out there, but after going out there and seeing the operation, seeing how well that it was managed, and I asked a lot of questions as far as, are you going to have any trucks running at night? Are you going to have backup alarms? Are you going to have that kind of stuff? And I was assured that none of that would be going on at night. The only thing be going on is this crusher behind this 40-foot berm, and that it wouldn't affect anybody. And then after going over there and actually listening, it convinced me. And if anybody else decides they're going to work at night and they go to these links and they go to these steps that this company's taken to quieten the sound, I mean, absolutely would look at any of it. But people can't hear it when this thing's running at night. There's no way you can hear it.
Yeah, Mr. Overton, I appreciate you bringing up that berm. I do think that's important for the public to realize. A couple of things to reiterate for the public. One, this isn't the normal all-day construction that's going on out there. This is very specific to drilling and grinding. Two, this company does have very state-of-the-art equipment. I mean, I was really quite surprised at how not quiet, but how not horribly loud it was when we were right next to it. And then three, they have constructed this 40-foot berm around where the grinding is going to happen. And while we were all there, the berm had not yet been completed. So it's going to be buffered even more than what we experienced when we were there. So
I got a couple calls this week, and people concerned about the blasting, and they assured us that most of the blasting that goes on out there is at 2 p.m. during the afternoon. So I just want to make that clear. People think they're going to be blasting rock and doing this kind of stuff. None of that will be taking place at night. And he told me that most of their blasting is happening around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you hear in that time in the afternoon, then that's what they're doing. But other than that, he said they try really hard to stay on that schedule when they're doing their blasting.
And we have, actually, it was a codes meeting early today, and our building officials shared that they had actually gotten some complaints about blasting from that site that weren't actually from, it turned out they weren't actually from that site. People just thought that it was blasting from that site, and it was not.
So I appreciate them taking what steps they've taken to be sure this is quieting down. So I'm in support of it.
And I agree. I think, we ought to try it. But, like I said, if we start getting complaints, I'm talking about legitimate complaints, then we can always go back and change our mind and say, okay, no more,
I agree 100% with that, Chris.
No more.
I do too.
And we can make sure that you have access to the recording data out there that will help you verify that yourself.
I agree 100% with all of it.
I don't think after the berm is built that we're gonna hear any complaints anyway. I've talked to 2 people, and when I told them about the berm, it seemed to satisfy their curiosity about the blasting.
We have to make a motion on this.
I think that that's probably the best way to proceed at this point. Before we move any further along, I would invite Mr. Henry and Mr. Mason, if there's anything that we have not touched upon that they think we should, or we've not communicated any information they think is pertinent. So Mr. Henry or Mr. Mason, and you do have to unmute. I see Mr. Mason is unmuted. So if there's something you wish to say, please do.
First of all, just on behalf of DPR, we're thank the council for the consideration in this. I was taken aback by the wonderful conversation that occurred. So we really don't think we can add anything else to what you guys have already concluded.
Appreciate that. All right.
Alex, Jeff, could you maybe tell them how much longer you made that berm from when they were out there visiting?
We can give some updated photos of what we've occurred. Obviously, the weather this past weekend sort of hampered, finishing the berm, but we're still in process of doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Fenton has prepared a resolution. If we want to have Mr. Henschel put that on the screen, this council be able to see it. I will try to read it for you if I can. Actually, I don't know that I can. I may ask you to, because part of my, let's see. I'm going to move my screens around. Okay, I think I can read it now. It says this is resolution R2008, no number assigned to it yet. It's a resolution granting DPR construction a variance in work hours related to construction at 1432 Gateway Drive. Be it resolved by the City of Gallatin, Tennessee, that DPR construction and its subcontractors are granted a variance in work hours related to construction at 1432 Gateway Drive in accordance with Gallatin Municipal Code Ordinance 01704-33, and be it further resolved that this variance is granted through February 15th, 2021, as requested in the attached letter from DPR Construction, and be it further resolved that the City Council gives authority to the Gallatin Building Official and Gallatin Police Department to grant an extension to this variance for DPR Construction without continued permission from the City Council. And, can you move the document down? Is that the last thing? And be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect from and after its final passage, the public welfare requiring such. So that is the resolution as it reads in its entirety.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve by Councilman Overton, a second by Councilman Alexander. Is there any further discussion that you all would like to have related to this, or may I have Ms. Kittrell call for the roll?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
I don't understand why this has come up under other business tonight. We had this on the agenda last week. Why was this not a regular agenda item where the public would have had a chance to come and voice their opinion?
Well, I think because last week we discussed that we would just have the council pretty much say that, you know, they were comfortable with Chuck Stewart, our building official, granting that authority. And then in conversations today, Mr. Stewart explained why he wasn't comfortable doing that without the council actually doing something. And so that's why that was actually just created today. How you want to move forward with that information, open to recommendations. Vice Mayor Camp.
I'm not really comfortable with cutting the public out on this either, though.
Well, but I think based on our work session last week that they did expect us to discuss it at this meeting. We just had to go a different route than we anticipated, or that I anticipated.
One of them fishy things, isn't it?
Pardon me?
Nothing.
I don't really know how the public, I hate to say this, could really weigh in at the discussion unless they heard what we heard on the site. Am I making sense?
Well, no, I mean, I do agree that it's never the best form for us not to have, because I think the City of Gallatin is very, very good with full transparency. But like I said, it was on last week's agenda. We discussed it. They knew that we were going to go to the site, discuss it again this week. And I think at last week's meeting, the thought was that we were just going to say, yeah, we're okay with you moving forward, or no, we're not okay with you moving forward with granting them permission. Mr. Stewart says he's not comfortable granting that permission because he doesn't want every, contractor in town coming to him wanting to work overnight. And this is a very specific circumstance. I personally think that Mr. Stewart should do that, but he also has to follow the tenets by which he is licensed, and so this is an option.
Steve, it's just like they said, if it don't work, we have every right to rescind this resolution. So
that's what I'm comfortable with. If
I'm
the public says anything,
if it doesn't work, we'll rescind it and we'll move on.
Right.
We'll abide by it, but until we get some legitimate complaints and some problems out there, I think it's best to let them move on and get this project going.
And I also want to echo what Mr. Overton said. I feel the same way because we have allowed ourselves the opportunity, if something doesn't go according to plan, that we could still weigh in on this issue. So I don't have a problem with it going forward at this time.
I would ask if Mr. Stewart has anything that he would like to add to the conversation, or if I've said anything inappropriate, he may want to correct me. He just popped
No,
on there.
you know, I feel comfortable with the noise decibels and the levels out there. We had a meeting this morning with the contractors that are going to be on that site, and we had a room full from the building contractors up through all the trade contractors, and had a lot of discussion with them. But this ordinance is not a noise ordinance. This is a construction activity ordinance. The noise ordinances fall under Mr. McCord in the planning department, that under zoning. Construction site noise, lighting at night on the site, those things are all into consideration. Once they change their request from a 7-day-a-week to a 5-day-a-week and give the residents the weekends off out there, I feel a lot better about it. But to be fair to everyone in the city, where citations were issued and jobs were shut down for a week, to be fair, I feel like the council is the one, and I mentioned this to the mayor today, I think it's an ordinance that the council passed unanimously when we entered it. And I feel more comfortable if the council would vote on this to allow them the time to work out there.
Thank you for that further explanation. And I really don't think that there is a noise violation that will occur based on the decibel readings that they have out there. Ms. Hamacali, is there anything that you would want to add to this conversation?
Yes, I was going to ask that the resolution be put back up again so I could see it. I can't remember if it gives until a date, and if it just gives until a date, you may consider amending it to say until is granted through this date or until rescinded by council.
Would someone want to propose that amendment?
I'll make that as an amendment.
I'll second it.
Until, I would add, it should be or until earlier rescinded by council, so that doesn't seem like we're trying to extend it in any way.
Now, you actually have that last part that says that it can be extended without continued permission from the city council. But I still think that that doesn't vary the meaning if you add that in that line following the February 2021 date.
Okay.
You could say unless earlier rescinded by the.
I think that would be an appropriate amendment. And I will also add that typically we don't vote on resolutions or ordinances that don't come up before the council committee, but I just looked at our charter and our code, and because it was discussed at the last committee meeting, I do think that it was discussed, the issue was discussed, and so you don't have to move to amend the rules. I wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, Ms. Hamacali. Okay, so I know that I heard Mr. Overton say that he would make that amendment, make a motion for that amendment. I think there was a second, but I didn't see who that was.
I seconded.
I did.
Okay,
Mr. Love
Councilman
seconded.
Alexander seconded the amendment. Is there any discussion that you guys want to have on the amendment? Anyone? All right. We will vote first on the amendment. I will ask Ms. Kittrell to call the roll to vote on the amendment.
Vice Mayor Camp,
Same.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilman Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor, 6 yeses, 1 no.
Okay, so we have the amendment is approved. We will go back to the original motion, which is the ordinance as proposed without a number. Ms. Hamacali, did you have something about it?
I was curious if Vice Mayor Camp abstained or said no.
He said abstained.
Abstained.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he said no.
Oh, I'm
he
so sorry.
abstained.
Thank you guys for correcting that. So we're
Then
back
Mayor,
on
we have 6 ayes and 1 abstention.
motion. Thank you. So we're back on the original motion. And do you all want to discuss that further? Or do you feel ready to vote on it?
Ready to vote?
Ready to vote.
I think we ought to just mention that this project has gotten a lot of special equipment, so that especially to stop noise, and and you've already mentioned that huge berm, but just to make sure that other companies realize that it's not the same thing as just everybody uses. There's
Ms.
special equipment.
The only thing that I feel good about is if the noise was too loud for the citizens, then we do have a recourse. We can stop it.
Right.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I will ask Ms. Kittrell to go ahead and call the roll for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Camp,
Aye.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilman Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
Mayor, 1 abstention, 6 yeses.
Okay, and thank you very much. That concludes discussion on that item. One thing I do want to mention to this council, just because it has been the subject of some hyper focus related to one of the proposed projects, is the ongoing questions about the fire hall, which would be our Station 6. I just wanted to maybe explain for the public's benefit that whenever we're considering a new project, that we always ask our public safety departments to weigh, well, all of our departments actually, to weigh in on what the projected needs are. And those projected needs are often based upon other planned projects, but none of those needs necessarily are needed the day that project is approved. They are needed at some point in the future, and that's often based on how other developments happen in a certain area. And so, as we've said before, there certainly are plans for a Fire Station 6. We don't know exactly what that timeline would be. I think the City of Gallatin has a very, very long track record of being fiscally well managed. I think that we probably would fund it as we have lots of things along the way, probably some with bond, some with reserve funds, hopefully some with grants. But this fire hall, or this fire service in that area, actually it brings us a unique opportunity that we haven't had with other fire stations, because we have opportunities out there to actually begin serving that area before we actually constructed a fire hall. And we would have a unique opportunity there to begin fire service in phases, whereby we may start with an engine purchase and hopefully a safer grant to provide staffing. And then, over time we could build the fire hall. But certainly that, as all of the facilities are in the city's long range plan, as well as personnel additions and other capital needs that are planned for as we project into the future. And so I know that there's been a lot of focus on that particular needed entity, but we look at it holistically with all the other needs that are happening around the city, and what that time frame may look like is to be determined. And I should add too, I said, there's never going to be a guarantee that any of us can provide that no taxes will ever be raised. The City of Gallatin, again, has a long track record of keeping our taxes low. Right now, I think we're the lowest city around, and that hasn't always been the case for Gallatin. And as you know, we've taken a really, really big hit because of the errors in assessment where appeals are being granted. And we're going to lose probably close to $800,000 when all's said and done. But we are managing our money well. We have been very fortunate even during the pandemic. And I still think that moving forward, that the City of Gallatin will be in good financial shape. So those are my comments related to that.
And we hadn't had to cut the 401k for our city employees.
There you go. For the fireworks.
Hey, we're still on other business. Who else has anything they need to bring forward this evening?
Great job. Thank you for that explanation, Mary. That was great.
Okay, I don't see anyone bringing any other business forward. So I'm going to move on to public comment on non-agenda related items. Again, this is the time of the meeting that the public may speak to items that are not on the week's agenda. We're going to ask, if you're on your cell phone, you *9 to raise your hand. If you're in the Zoom meeting, you may also raise your hand through the program. And once you are called upon, you will need to unmute yourself. So Mr. Henschel, I'm going to turn it over to you for public comment on non-agenda related items.
Very good. We'll start with Frank Marchese. Go ahead.
Thank you. Frank Marchese, 589 Harris Lane. I continue to come to this council about Harris Lane and Long Hollow issues with the pork chop. It has been, this month marks 1 year that I've sent every council member a letter explaining the issues and the dangerous conditions on the street caused by this pork chop. And we have a new addition causing problems on the street. Now that we have Griffin Lane populated, we have a school bus which comes in from Greenlee, comes up to Griffin Lane and makes a U-turn on Harris Lane as it picks up children, so it could go back out to Greenlee and go up to Long Hollow westbound towards toward the high school. Cars continue to speed down this street. Cars continue to make left-hand turns. I know we don't have the traffic analysis. That was the second traffic analysis that was completed. We have many, I'm sorry, am I saying something funny? We have many witnesses to the dangerous driving and the dangerous left-hand turns going on at this intersection. I don't think we needed to pay for a traffic study. We have very upstanding neighbors and citizens. I know I haven't been here long, but as long as I've been here, I have been making a point to bring this to your attention. I know I am one person. I asked this question last week. How many people does it take to complain before something gets done? I know this is a small thing in everyone's eyes with all the development going on in this town, in this city, and with all the other issues going on, but if it's a small thing, please stop pushing it aside and take care of it.
Thank you, Mr. Marchese.
Michelle Jovance, go ahead.
Can you hear me? I can't tell if I'm unmuted.
You're
Yes.
unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm kind of confused right now because the last resolution that you voted on, I remember maybe a month or two ago when you voted on a resolution that was not on the agenda, and someone from the public spoke about that, asking about that, saying that, you know, that you broke sunshine laws. So I don't think that you broke sunshine laws on this. Maybe you did, I don't know. But my question was, the explanation last time was that you voted to put it on the agenda to be able to vote on it. Maybe I'm not understanding how it happened, but then today you didn't. So I'm super confused about the process.
College already explained that.
No, she said that because you talked about it last week that you didn't have to put it on the agenda, but it wasn't on the agenda. So don't you have to vote to put it on the agenda to be able to vote on something?
Again, this is public comment. We don't typically respond during public comment, but Ms. Hamacali did explain why we didn't in this case and we did in last case. That was the differentiation that she was drawing. Ms. Hamacali, am I correct on that? And she said she checked our code to make sure that we were in compliance with that.
That is correct. It's section 2-71, and it references that you have to speak on the item at the prior council committee meeting. And I believe what happened the last time, there had been no discussion on that item at the prior council committee meeting.
Okay.
So that's the differentiation of these two.
Okay, so there was no discussion on the previous item at all, ever. So is that a problem?
That's why they had to vote to suspend the rules.
Okay. Thank you for answering the question.
I don't see anyone else who has indicated they'd like to speak.
All right. With that, we are free.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. We have a motion. We are able to adjourn because.
Thank y'all. Take care.
Thank you all for being here. I wish you all a good evening. And we'll look forward to seeing you again. Thank you guys for being interested in the city of Gallatin and joining us this evening. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Out,